Session 1 of Tailwind's 3-part training. In this session, I'm going to show you where to go for help, how to access all of your help documents. I will take you right through this gear icon and our configuration area where you will do some setup information. I'll also show you how to create master records. Master records are of course needed in order to move forward with the software. Let's begin with our training tools that we have available for you. There's a few ways that you can access help from Tailwind. Here is the main page that you're going to land on when you log into your software. Underneath this lady with a microphone is the ability for you to click on our support articles and videos, and the software will populate on another tab in your browser, allowing you to navigate between your application and the other tab all of our Customer Success and Support Center. Every article you need to learn how to use our application is listed here. This will become very valuable for you while you're learning our software. If you have a question, you can certainly type it in the search bar. Whenever you access an article, most of our articles have two ways to learn, whether it's a video with someone talking you through the process, or it's a Word document with screenshots, however you like to learn. Clicking Home will take you back to the main page of your Customer Success and Support Center. Let's go back to the application, everyone. Also, down here in the bottom right-hand corner is the ability for you to strike up a conversation with any member on our support team. Clicking on it will allow you to strike up a new conversation. Your support people that are presently working will be showing here, and you can then simply type your question, whatever it is you're looking for help for. There's a phone number if needed, listed right there, that 1-866-441 number, so you can call support as well if you like. Great, that's our learning tools that are available for you, everyone. I'm now going to access this gear icon so we can talk about all that it holds. Clicking on the gear icon will of course produce a menu for you. Settings is very rudimentary, everyone. There's not much here for you. General settings will allow you to hide this navigation bar if you want. I always leave my navigation bar activated. I like to know where I'm heading in the software. But if you, for some reason, would like more real estate on your browser, for example, using this little circle here or hiding it through the general settings will allow the software to dismiss that navigation bar off to the left. Hovering over it will show the navigation bar again for you. Hitting the pin button will allow the navigation bar to show full time. If you happen to be a diligent software user and like to change your password on a regular basis, here is the ability to do so. You can change your password at any time that works for you. Back to the gear icon, everyone. This configuration area is an area we're going to visit in today's session, so we're going to come back to that. User management is an area where you can do some work as the admin person of the company. When you signed up for a subscription to our software, whether it was for a 1-user, a 3-user, 5, or a 10-user system, someone at your company was appointed the admin user. If you're a 1-user system, then of course you're the admin user as well. But if you're a multiple user software, there was one person that was designated as the admin user, and it is the admin user only that has access to user management. Clicking on user management will allow the software to show your user management area for you, and you can do a few items here. You can upgrade or downgrade your current subscription. You can decrease or increase your subscription count. So as your business grows and you want to add users into your software, you can certainly do so right here. You don't need to reach out to the support team. You can do it yourself. Now, in today's class, I am going to teach you how to create your personnel records. And when you do, all of your personnel will be listed here. It is from this list that you have the ability by clicking Create Account to create a user for your software. Clicking Create Account will send the person in question an email, so make sure your personnel records are populated with email addresses. They will receive an email with a link to the application and the ability for that user to set their own password. Once you create an account for any user you want to access your database, they will populate up here in the Registered Users account, where you then have the ability to enable or disable them. That can become very useful for you if a dispatcher or a sales rep leaves you abruptly. You don't want to give them access to your data. You will disable their account as soon as you know they're leaving you. Remember, this is a web-based application that anyone can access from any internet. Now you also have another function. You can send password resets. If you want your staff to keep resetting their passwords, you can do that. You can also set specific security. Let's have a look at security rights. Security or permission settings is the ability for you to tell the software what this person can and cannot see, can and cannot do. Each module in the software comes with its own specific security settings, allowing you to switch toggles on or off, representing what this user can or cannot do. You can load specific settings from templates if you want. So I always recommend that your users start out with full permission so they see all the functions in the software. As they learn the software, you will then want to restrict their permissions, applying exactly what you want for specific permissions. We have templates in place for your AR or your AP people or your dispatcher. Setting specific security for each individual person will allow you to keep your data as safe and secure as you want. Back up to this gear icon, everyone. Help documentation. That's simply another way we feel the Customer Success and Support Center is so very important to you that we give you two ways to access it. Clicking on Help Documentation will simply, again, allow the software to open on another tab in your browser, that Customer Success and Support Center. We also have pre-recorded videos. So if you don't want to attend our live training, you can certainly reach out and simply access pre-recorded training videos right here. Live training is always useful because there's a question period at the end of this live training. TeamViewer Connect is simply a piece of software that we will ask you to use when you need us to connect into your computer with you. So it's just a screen sharing piece of software. Great, everyone. That's our gear icon. We're now going to navigate into the configuration area and cover off all of that. Clicking on Configuration will allow the software to populate the configuration menu across the top of the application for you. Now, there's a lot of functions we can do in here, and I'm going to show the most of them to you today. However, there's areas in here that do require setup time now, but also require you to come back and visit to set some defaults that will help the software mirror your operations. Everybody's different. Posts invoices and bills differently, ages invoices and bills differently, and there are settings in here that will allow the software to take on your company settings. So while this is an area that's very good for setup now, it's also an area you're going to come back to after you've learned the behavior. Why change behavior until you've learned that behavior? Let's start here in the company information menu item. Accessing the general information will allow you to see your branch record. Again, when you signed up for a subscription to our software, you told us your company name. So we're sending the database out to you with your branch name populated right here. This is now the ability for you to edit it, opening it up and allowing you to put in your legal name, your address, your city. You can track your docket number, your carrier code number. For Canadian customers, you can track your GST and HST numbers, DOT numbers. The ability for you to brand your software. Uploading a logo, hitting choose file will send you out to your computer for wherever you might have your logo stored, so that now your reports can be branded with your logo. Throughout the application, there are multiple reports, invoices, load confirmations, trip manifests that are going to be very useful to you. Let's look at a couple of examples so you understand what I mean when I talk to you about branding your software. This is a quote that can be issued to your customers. It has your logo, your company information. Once you complete that information, trip manifests that are issued to company drivers and owner-operators. Load confirmations that are issued to carrier partners. Invoices. All of these reports have the ability for you to brand them, showing your logo and your company information. You must, first of all, complete the information here in your configuration area. So populate all of the information that you see listed here and upload that logo so the software can brand your database. Note that you have two tabs, a general tab and an insurance tab. Now this is most useful for our asset-based trucking companies because every asset-based trucking company has a certificate of insurance. It can also be useful for freight brokerage companies if you have a surety bond or some other insurances you want to display. This plus sign will allow you, clicking on it, will allow you to detail your insurance provider. Here in this pull down, the record will already be set as an insurance provider, and you can now simply detail, maybe you deal with SunWest insurance, whatever that information might be. You will simply detail your insurance provider because that will then allow you to choose that insurance provider in this pull down, and you can now detail the policy number, policy start and end date for your cargo insurance as well as your liability insurance. Entering this information will allow you to show that your owner-operators, if you employ owner-operators, are running under your insurance and authorities. So the very first step is the ability to come into your configuration area, highlight company information and choose general information, allowing you now to edit your company branch details. Now let's note, I have multiple branches created here. You can create as many branches as needed for the running of your business. This is very useful in situations like an asset-based trucking company that might have a brokerage division, or a freight brokerage company that has multiple offices in different jurisdictions. If ownership wants to track revenue and expenses for those offices, branches, divisions separately, can be accomplished. Every record in the database has the ability to be associated to a specific branch. Great, let's move on to the next item we see listed here in the configuration area, Lookup Tables. Now, Lookup Tables are some shortcuts for you, everyone. This is the ability for you to populate pull downs throughout the software. You can populate pull downs for commodity types, note subjects, customer prospect stages, task subjects, bill of lading classes, and personnel departments. The most common area I see this used is commodity types, and it is truly just a data entry time-saving tool for you. When you're creating orders for your customers, you will certainly have the ability to freeform the commodity, but if you populate the pull downs through your lookup tables, you will have the ability to simply choose the commodity. This is a complete list of all commodities I've already created and set up in my database. Yours will be blank. When you're ready to populate your lookup tables and your commodity types, you will simply type the commodity type that you move very often, click Add. That will then be available for you when you're doing data entry of orders. Note that you also see an item called Custom Fields here. Now, custom fields could be very, very useful for you. Custom fields is the ability to create up to 4 user-defined or custom fields to any record in the database. You have the ability to create up to 4. Let's talk about a few examples here, and maybe it'll make it a little clearer why this is useful for you. I was recently working with a lumber hauler, and our shipment records allow them to track the weight of the shipment, the number of lifts of the shipment, where it picks up and where it delivers, and the dimensions. We had no fields that would track the number of board feet. And this company does everything by the number of board feet in a shipment. They even tie their revenue through to the board feet. So we simply created a custom field called board feet. That now, her shipment records now have an extra field called board feet where they can simply populate the number of board feet that are moving on a trailer. Another example for you. I was recently working with an intermodal company. You always want to know when your free time expires of those containers or chassis you pick up from the dock. Create a custom field for it. Or reefer companies that require to know the temperature that the reefer needs to be set at. Create a custom field for it. Or on customers. Maybe you track your customers by a customer code or an account number. Create a custom field for it. So if when you're using the application in the future and all of a sudden you think to yourself, oh, I wish the software could track this piece of information, remember it can through the use of custom fields. Back up to our Lookup Tables pull-down menu here, everyone. Let's talk about equipment types. Now, accessing equipment types is going to show you an equipment tree. We've populated it with every piece of equipment that is known to mankind, or at least we think we have. Now, you don't have to do anything with this list if you don't want to. These equipments are available to you on individual shipment records so that you can show the piece of equipment that is required for the movement of that freight. But if you want to reduce your pull down, you can certainly do so. For example, if you never move any commodities with a crane, you can throw it in the garbage and it will remove it from the pull down. Or if you have some equipment that is not yet covered in this list, you can also add them in. For example, I know we don't have Conestogas. If, for example, you happen to move freight using Conestogas 48-foot or 53s, you can simply detail the type of equipment you have, add it in. It's then available in a pull down for you when you're creating orders and shipments for your customers. Oops, back to Lookup Tables, sorry. As well as equipment types, we've also got states and provinces. You always need to know where you're picking up and delivering to, and those are always represented by a state, province, or a country. We've populated the 48 continental states, 10 Canadian provinces, and 3 Canadian territories here. These are available in a pull down when you're creating your location records. Maybe you never go to Alberta in Canada. You can certainly throw it in the garbage if needed. Maybe you're a carrier that concentrates on the 13 eastern states. You can throw any of these items in the garbage and they will remove it from the pull down for you. But again, they're not hurting anything in here, everyone. As well as states and provinces, we have the 3 continental countries. Great, we're going to move on to operations now. Now, operations is an area you're going to come back to visit after you've learned the behavior of the software. There will be some settings through these items that you can make that will help the software mirror your operations. Let's move on to financial. Financial, there is some work that we need to do in here. There's also some work you're going to come back to visit as well, but let's talk about the areas where you do need to do some setup work. Here under accounts is the ability for you to detail any bank account, credit card account that you use in the running of your business. If it is a bank account, you can certainly repopulate your database with a basic checking CAD and checking USD. You can edit these records. For example, maybe I happen to have a checking account with US Bank. I can simply rename this to be US Bank Checking. And then that's available for me to receive payments in from my customers or pay my vendors from. You can also create credit card accounts, Comdata accounts. So right here with the Add Account button, you can now detail whatever account you have. Maybe I have a Visa card and the currency is Canadian. The account is, of course, a credit card account. Let's note that we have an output format here. Bank accounts will, of course, be set to print checks. Credit card accounts are post-only accounts, everyone. So you can create any account that you use to receive payments from your customers into and issue payments to your vendors from. Also in financial, let's talk for a brief moment about tax types so I can remove some confusion for you guys. As an American customer of ours, you're probably going, tax types? What do I need tax types for? Well, we well know there is no tax on freight in the US. There is, however, tax on freight in Canada, and the software has the ability to enforce the Canadian tax rules. These are simply the various tax rates that are used in Canada. So this is useful for our Canadian clients. Now, I don't cover off fuel surcharge rates or exchange rates or classes in basic training. You can always read our articles or reach out to the help team or myself for further information on those items. I'd like to talk to you now about revenue and expense items. Revenue items are those items that we use to invoice our customers for the movement of freight, and they will print on your invoices. So you can categorize your revenue to your customers on invoices. Now, we'll populate your database with a basic freight charge, fuel surcharge, and a bad debt. But everybody's different and has different accessorials depending on the type of operation you have. For example, flat deck companies will always want the ability to charge their customers for a tarp charge. Trucking companies that move multiple shipments for their customers will always want to be able to charge for an extra drop, extra pickup, or stop-off charge. Heavy haul companies would probably want to be able to charge their customers for a pilot car, or permits, or tolls. You can create all of your accessorials using Create Revenue Item. Let's have a look at that. When I click Create Revenue Item, I've got two fields. The name field is how you're going to recognize it. The description is what's going to print on the invoice to your customer. So that's all you need to remember is the difference between those. Note that the description is what prints on the invoice to your customer. You can now set these items to custom and custom. Setting the unit default type to custom and the unit rate default type to custom is going to simply be the ability when you're building your orders, the ability for you to manually populate the amount of money you're charging for that accessorial. If you charge $75 for every tarp fee and you never waver from that, populate $75 and the software will go ahead and populate that amount for you when you choose this revenue item. So you can create all of the revenue items for your accessorials, lumper fees, fuel surcharge by the mile, anything that you need, extra drops or picks. You can also tie your revenue items through to shipment details. Let's talk about that for a brief moment. Remember that lumber customer I spoke to you about? The fact that she likes to invoice her customers by the number of board feet? Let's have a look at this one. So we called it per board feet. The description that's going to print on the invoice to our customer is per board feet. Here in the unit default type, we can now tie it right through to the number of board feet that are on that shipment record. And the software will take that board feet and multiply it out by this rate, realizing their freight charges. Let's look at another example. A very common way to invoice our customers in transportation is by the hundredweight. So let's open this one up and have a look at it. This is how I'm going to recognize it. This is what's going to print on the invoice to my customer. Here, I select the hundredweight and I tell the software that I charge $50 per hundredweight. When this revenue item is used on an order, the software is going to look at the weight of the shipment, divide it by 100, of course, multiply it by this $50 rate, realizing what your revenue is or your freight charge is for that particular order. This is going to become a little clearer to you in our session 2 when we start using these revenue and expense items. So go ahead and create some accessorials as needed for your company. Let's move on and talk to you for a brief moment about expense items. While revenue items are what you invoice your customer, expense items are how you categorize your costs of goods or expenses. Good categorization of costs of goods or expenses will always lead to good cost analysis reporting for us. Asset-based trucking companies will have far more expense items than freight brokerage companies because asset-based trucking companies need the ability to throw things into a maintenance bucket or a tire expense bucket. You can create any of your expense items that you need for the running of your business. I'd like to take a brief moment in this class now to talk to you about automatic payables. Automatic payables are the ability for the software to automatically determine some expenses based upon some presets. Very useful in situations like driver pay, by the mile, by the hour, or by picks and drops. Owner-operator revenue splitting or commission. If you incentivize any of your staff by commission, the software has the ability to determine these commission payments for you. And again, you're going to see this at work in session 2. So it's a little confusing here at the beginning. Working with revenue and expense items and automatic payables is probably the most complicated thing you're going to come up against in Tailwind. It's not that complicated. It's just a little overwhelming at the beginning. So don't hesitate to reach out to the support team through our in-app chat. Send me an email so that I can help you with your revenue and expense items. Don't forget about your Customer Success and Support Center. We have articles on absolutely everything you need to set up in the database. Let's go back over here and talk further about those automatic payables. Let's look at a couple of examples. This one represents driver pay by the mile. I call it whatever I want it to be named. The description is what's going to print on the driver pay settlement statement. I tie it to the actual miles, and I tell the software I want to pay this driver 50 cents per mile. Now, setting up the expense item is only one part of the equation, so hang on for second part. Let's look at a few more examples first of all. Let's check out owner-operator revenue splitting. Variance very often will incentivize our owner-operators by sharing the revenue of an order with them. We invoice a customer $1,000. We pay our owner-operators 75%, 80%, 90%, whatever your settings are. Again, this is what I'm going to recognize it as. This is what's going to print on the owner-operator pay settlement statement. The percentage I want to pay the owner-operator, and I now tie it to the revenue of the order. If I tie this to custom, the software doesn't know. 75% of what? What do you want me to pay 75% of? The minute I set this to revenue, the software will open my complete list of revenue items, allowing me to switch toggles on for all of those items that I'm going to share with the owner-operator. Everything you want the owner-operator to share in the revenue with you, you will simply switch those toggles on. You can then hit the Save button, which commits those details. One part of the equation, everyone. I'll tell you the second part in just a moment. Once you've set up the expense item and saved it, it will populate here in your list, and we'll look at that second part in just a moment. Let's look at a commission. This commission on revenue, again, it's the percentage you're going to pay. Tie it to the revenue and switch those toggles on for all the revenue items you want to share in the revenue with your commission sales rep. Maybe you pay commission on the profit. Maybe you have dispatchers or sales reps that take orders for customers for $1,000, move them with a carrier for $800, and you pay a commission on that profit of $200. You can set those up as well. Let's look at that example. Again, what I'm going to recognize it as, what's going to print on the pay settlement statement to my commission sales rep, the percentage I'm paying, and then I tie it to the profit. And when I tie it to profit, I get two windows down here. My revenue items, allowing me to choose all the revenue items I want the the commission person to share in the revenue with me, and all of my expense items that I want deducted from the revenue to realize the profit level. Once I've set up all of these expense items to use, let's now talk about that second part. On personnel records, company drivers, dispatchers, once you've created the item, created the personnel record, you will then have the ability, for example, on your company drivers. Let's come into Georgia Green's record. I'm going to throw this auto payable in the garbage so you can see how easy it is to add those auto payables in. I've got Georgia Green's record all created, and I have an automatic payable section. When I add the auto payable, there's an asterisk beside the two fields that are important. What expense item to use? Well, in this example, I'm going to pay Georgia 50 cents per mile. In what situation do I want to pay Georgia? Well, when she's the driver on a dispatch. Adding that into Georgia's record, the software will now go to work for you. Every time Georgia is selected as the driver on a dispatch, the software is going to create Georgia's pay for her and pay her 50 cents for all the miles. Let's look at another example. Let's look at John, who happens to be a commission sales rep in my database. Here I can see I've got John set up to receive 10% commission of the revenue when he is the account rep on an order. In session 2, you're going to see the ability to create these orders for your customers, and every quote, every order has the ability to have 3 internal staff members recognized. So you can actually incentivize 3 different levels of staff on each order if needed. Let's have a look at an owner-operator record. I'm simply coming to my vendors. We're going to talk about owner-operators in today's class, but let me just find my owner-operator record for Monty Shoemaker. There he is. Happens to be an owner-operator in my database, and I can see I've got an automatics payable section. I can add in the fact that Monty is going to get 75% revenue when he is the tractor owner on a dispatch. Sometimes your owner-operators bring trailers to the table for you as well. Now I'm going to pay Monty 10% trailer revenue split when he is the trailer owner on a dispatch. So just using this add auto payable will allow you to add those auto payables to any master record that you need. Mostly useful for driver pay, commission sales reps, owner-operator revenue splitting, or per mile pay. And again, make sure you access our articles or reach out to the support department for help on those automatic payables, everyone. Let's navigate back to our configuration area where we're going to pick it up and continue on with our configuration area. We left off here under revenue and expense items. So you will want to do some work in there. You can always come back to this area when you're working and you're creating an order and you've forgotten to create that accessorial. You can come back in here and add it in at any time. Let's move on to documents, everyone. Here in documents is the ability for you to brand your software even further. Let me take you to a few of these reports again. On your report quote, you're going to have a tagline. You're going to have some terms and conditions. On your load confirmation, you're going to have a tagline. And again, loading terms and conditions. Everybody's different. Wants their own verbiage on these reports. On your invoice, you have a notice. You have a tagline. There's the tagline. You can customize all of these fields, make them your own, so that the software is branded for your specific company. Back to the configuration, everyone, here, and accessing documents, document fields. Here in this pull down is a list of all document fields that you have the ability to change. Now, BOL certify and BOL terms are legalese that are taken directly from transportation law, so I'm not sure you want to change those. You can if needed. However, there's a number of fields you will want to change and make your own. Let's look at the example of quote terms. These are the terms and conditions that you're going to find listed on the bottom of your quote. You want to make them your own? You simply highlight whatever is there right now and simply start typing your own terms and conditions, whatever they might be. So terms are terms. Contract terms are the terms and conditions that are listed at the bottom of your load confirmation. So terms are terms. Notices are notices. Let's look at this example. This invoice notice is what prints on my invoice right here. You can change it, make it whatever you want it to be. As well, you've got terms, you've got notices, you've got advertisements. Those are simply taglines. You want to simply say, thank you for your business. Simply type that information in there. Your taglines will print on the various reports in the software. So documents is simply the ability for you to customize and brand the software even further to your company. Integrations. Now, I don't cover off integrations like MacroPoint, Trucker Tools, Smart Capacity in basic training. We do have integrations built with those companies. If you're a MacroPoint customer, you're a Trucker Tools, Smart Capacity customer, reach out to our support team. Let them help you set up the integration there. However, you can set up your own integration for your load boards. If you make use of any of those load posting sites on the internet, we have integrations built with DAT, Internet Truck Stop, and 123 Load Board. So for example, if I was setting up my DAT load board, all I have to do is put my account number here, my username, and my password. Setting up this integration here in the configuration area will allow the software to advertise your loads on those load posting sites or your empty equipment on those load posting sites. Great, I think that's the configuration area. Let's have a look. Yes, that's covering off the entire configuration area, everyone. Let's go out to our learning documents here for a quick moment so we can review all that we've learned so far. This Getting Started guide will take you through all the initial setup steps that you need to do when setting up your software. Reading the Navigating Tailwind, the operations overview, can be very useful for you. System configuration basics. working with revenue and expense items, setting up automatic payables, managing user accounts, customizing your documents. All of your articles are here, everyone. And now, for the remainder of this class, we're going to talk about populating your database with your master records. Master records are needed in order to move forward with the software, everyone. You can also access templates. Let's talk about this for a brief moment before we talk about manually creating our customer and vendor records. Accessing the importing your data will allow you to access individual templates of ours. So if you have the ability to put your customer list, your vendor list, your location list, your equipment list into an Excel spreadsheet, accessing our template and the instructions for filling out our templates will allow you to copy and paste columns into our template in the appropriate column, send that template off to our support team, and let them upload your master records for you, saving you the time of creating your master records. I'm also going to show you how to create your master records right now, and they're all populated here for you, those articles, when you want to do it after class. Back to our software, everyone. Here under the heading of records is all of your master records. There's 5 of them. Let's roll through them together. So customers are simply the ability for you to create a record for every customer that you happen to move freight for. At the top of every list, you're going to find a Create button that, when clicked, will allow the software to open up the record and show you all fields that are required. Items marked in red or with a red asterisk are required in order to move forward with the record. Good business practice tells us we're going to populate all of the information. The more data in your database, the more valuable your database will become for you. Simply populating the details. Maybe I'm setting up a company called ABC Company. Populating the details and working through the record will allow you to create this record for you. You can set a default account rep and sales rep to each record. You can show each record to be associated to a specific branch if, in fact, you use multiple branches. You can set a preferred currency for this customer if you're a multi-currency software trucking company. You can tell the software how this customer likes to receive invoices, whether by printing and stuffing in an envelope or by email. And if you choose email, then make sure you put the email address here in this field of the person that receives the invoices. If your customer always requires their PO or reference number to show on the invoices, switch that toggle on, and that will prompt your users to make sure they've populated the customer PO or reference number. Categorizing your customers can be very useful, especially for our Canadian clients. You can always set your customers to be a prospect, a merchant, a manufacturer, and track further details. So if this is simply set to a merchant, I can now track the minimum cargo and liability insurance requirements of this customer. I can set a broker if needed. Setting the customer to another type of customer, like another carrier you're working for, or a broker, allows the software to let you now track docket numbers, their prefix, their docket number, whether they're CSA approved, if you have bond information on them. Also know for Canadian clients, setting a customer to a broker or a carrier allows the software to recognize that that is a tax-exempt customer. Once you've set your type, you'll now, of course, come down to your addresses and simply populate the address of your customer. So simply putting in the details. As soon as you start to narrow it down, the software is going to go to work for you. It's going to show you where that location resides on a related map. If this customer has multiple locations, maybe you pick up at a specific primary address or warehouse, but they want you to send the invoice to a different billing address, switch this toggle off and you then have the ability to track their actual billing address. The last thing to set in customer is to set credit for every customer, which will allow the software to keep you safe. Showing the customer as approved, setting an approval date, whatever that might be, the number of days. So if your terms are 7 days, put it there, because all of the terms will print on the invoice to your customer. Most common, of course, is 30 days, but you can put whatever your terms are there. And then, of course, setting a high credit. The software will keep you safe. It will not let you overexpose past the high credit set. If you do any vetting of your customers, whether you have a signed credit agreement, you pulled a D&B, maybe you check some trade references, switch those toggles on so you always know the vetting you did of your customer. Once you hit the Create button, the software will populate the customer record on the screen for you. Let's go and have a look at a customer I've already created so we can see what that looks like. The software will populate the record on the screen for you, showing you all the information you've already populated. You get to edit the credit if you need to. You get to add in contacts. You will always want to show a contact for your customer. You need a contact when you're creating orders for this customer. You can simply show it as the shipping department. You can put in a person's name. Adding contacts allow you to track email addresses, extensions, so that you've got all the information you need at your fingertips. Let's talk about notes for a brief moment. Now, notes are attached to every single record in the database. Absolutely every record has a note section. Notes will become very useful for you for visibility amongst all users. Notes are also very useful for you because every note has the ability to have an electronically scanned document attached to it. So gone are the days of transportation offices with carrier packages, customer credit applications, driver and owner-op applications. You can now scan those documents in and keep them attached right to the record in question, making them very easily accessible for you. You will also build rate histories for your customers. Now, this is not going to be in the software just yet for you because you are building your database. I'd like you to try and remember about this rate history button because it is through the rate history button that you're going to have the ability to access historical data for this customer. Clicking on a rate history button for any customer will allow the software to show you every load you've ever done for this particular customer. I can see I've done 186 loads for Acme. And while I can certainly scroll through here, looking for some data I'm needing, truly meant to be used in conjunction with some filtering criteria. Example, maybe this customer calls me and says, you know, Lynda, you moved a load from Atlanta to Mendota one time. Or wait, let me make sure I'm getting correct details. Let's go Atlanta to Denver. Well, I can't remember what I did yesterday for customers, so I let the software do the work for me. Putting the filtering criteria in, hitting go, will allow the software to filter out all of those loads, returning only 5 that match the criteria, picking up in Atlanta with a delivery or a drop to Denver, with the related rate I charged, as well as the ability to open that order and copy it out to a new one. For example, if the customer asks me to repeat that order. So that's your customer records, everyone. Make sure you get a couple of customer records created before your next session. Let's talk about vendors. Vendors are representative of any company that does work for your company, whether they're insurance providers, fuel providers, maintenance providers. When you create your vendor records, again, the software is going to open up all the fields that are required for population. It is through the categorization of your vendors that the software can do some work for you. Categorizing this for a basic maintenance provider, insurance provider is pretty rudimentary. The minute you categorize it as a U.S. authorized carrier, The software opens up all the fields that require you for vetting of your carriers. We well know that when you broker freight to a carrier partner, the ICC, DOT, and NSC task you with ensuring you're hiring reputable carriers. And you can do that through our software. You can track the details coming directly off their certificate of insurance, setting an expiry date. Software won't let you dispatch a load on a carrier that has expired or expiring insurance. You can track docket numbers, DOT numbers. You can even give your carriers an internal rating if you want. You can set your carriers to approved so that your users can't use a carrier that is not approved. You will see that you have 3 fields to track of a name. The internal name is how you're going to recognize this company. Maybe I deal with Joe's Trucking. The legal name, maybe he happens to be Joe's Trucking LLC. The remit name is the ability for you to show when your carriers factor their invoices. Maybe Joe's Trucking factors out to Grand Financial. I can simply put the remit name there, and I can also show a remit to address so that when I pay this carrier in the future, the payment is going to go to Grand Financial and Grand Financial's address. So make sure you get some vendor records created for yourself. Let me talk to you for a brief moment about owner-operators. Owner-operators are a bit of a different beast for you. They always bring equipment to the table, a driver to the table. So an owner-operator record requires 3 separate records. And when you choose the vendor type as an owner-operator, not only do you have the ability to associate the insurance coming directly from your branch record, you also have the ability to create the tractor record. Owner-operator will always bring a tractor to the table for you, and as well create the driver record. You have to check compliance details on whoever drives the equipment, whether it's company-owned or owner-operator owned. So this will allow you, when you set the type to owner-operator, this will allow you to create all 3 records needed for an owner-operator. Moving on to locations. Personnel. Personnel is just the ability for you to create a record for any person that happens to work for your company, whether it's a company driver, dispatcher, owner, sales rep, account rep, order taker, admin people. Hitting that create button, software is going to show you all of the information that you need to track for these people. And once you do, the software, of course, will open up the field for you, allowing you to do some more. We'll open up the personnel record for you, allowing you to do more functions, like adding on those automatic payables, like tracking on commercial driver's licenses and passports, Nexus cards. Adding in any travel document will allow the software to track the expiries of these travel documents, keeping you safe. The software will let you know when a commercial driver's license, for example, is expiring on one of your driver records. You've also got a whole driver information section here with medical exams, hazmat certificates, the last time you did the annual driver record review. All of the information is here for you, even emergency contacts. Let's move on to location records, everyone. Locations are probably the most rudimentary record in the database for you, but they are very valuable. Locations will represent every place you ever pick up at, deliver to, cross-dock facilities, border crossing locations, customer warehouses. I will show you in session 2 how to create location records on the fly, but you can also create location records here. Let's note that the most valuable thing about your location records is the loading and receiving information. Every location's different, has specifics about it that you need to convey to your company drivers, owner-operators, and carrier partners. The fact that maybe the driver must have his own personal protection equipment on and visible. You can now put that information right here in this location record. Any information located in the loading or the receiving information will flow right through the software. It's going to print on trip manifests issued to your company drivers and owner-operators, load confirmations to your carrier partners. So do go ahead and create a few location records, but I'm also going to show you in session 2 how to create location records on the fly. Now, equipment records are simply the ability for our asset-based trucking companies to create an equipment record for any piece of equipment they want to attach to a dispatch, whether it's a tractor, trailer, chassis, booster, or dolly. Here at the top of the list is your Create button, which will open all the fields up for requirement. Categorizing your units, of course, whether they're a tractor, trailer, a chassis, a container. Showing whether it's owned by a company, owner-operator, or a vendor in the case of when we rent our trailing equipment, for example. Putting all of the information in here will allow the software to create an equipment record for you and will populate it on the screen. Note that you will be able to do further functions from your equipment records. If you issue fleet fuel cards, you will be able to show which tractor has which fuel card. You will be able to keep track of all permits or stickers you may have purchased for that piece of equipment. You will be able to track on any services you've done for this piece of equipment. That's our master of records, everyone. Let's go back out to our customer success and support center. They're all here for you. All of the articles that you need are listed right here. Now in session 2, I'm going to start here in operations, and we'll do a complete running through all of the operations area as well. I'm going to show you some navigation tips. Great, we're just going to head back to the main area, the main page of the software, and I'll get the floor opened up for questions, everyone. 2 seconds for me.